So if you look at the PDF now, it might start to make some sense how we can make some of these forms. One thing that I want to talk about that Ryan reminded me of, I didn't show you guys. This is something I find really cool. Oh, you know what? And I actually crashed StudioMax while you guys were gone. StudioMax, guys, is really crash happy. It's a bloated program, and like, I think you guys know this from Rhino. It can crash pretty often. So make sure to save backups of the stuff you're working on. Enable like auto backup in the settings. Look for that setting because you will lose work, like inevitably. It's just a fact of life, like death and taxes. Okay. Check this out though. Again, Ryan reminded me this is really useful for you guys, especially in schematic design. So I got a box and I'm gonna do edge faces with it, and I'm gonna. Okay, so I've got a bunch of polygons. Go to Edit Mesh. I can go in and I can select the polygons, and I can do some pretty cool stuff with it. I can hang on a second here. Sorry, got to go through my settings here. Actually, okay, this is actually going to be something. Okay, this is actually an edit poly. Fact, there's a edit poly has different tools than edit mesh. It's hard to tell you what the difference is between edit polygon and edit mesh, but anyway, so you can do this thing. There's extrude. You guys know what that is. There's a tool called inset, and what that does is I can actually create a little inset, and then I can move these. I could bump these, or actually, sorry, I could extrude these negative, inward. And then I could create those as another material, or I could delete them. And I've just quickly created a facade, basically. Like there's like a window sill in there. Okay? So again, you can do things like, think about how you do a facade study. You could even just do like a extrude, like a negative extrude, and that would quickly give you a sense of that facade. So that's kind of how you might do something like this example. This was the question that was asked. So you would select that polygon, maybe do an inset, and then extrude it back into itself, kind of like wrapping a sock into itself, right? Okay. That was one that you don't really know. A lot of these are like mesh smooth. I think I talked about these are a mesh smooth. This is a combination of maybe like an FFD, probably two FFDs, like one to deform the shape and then one to create the kind of bubbles. Box modeling, bend modifier. That one's a gimme. Some of these are just simply about finding the original form and then copying it. Okay. And StudioMax is really nice. I think you can do this in Rhino. I'm not going to pretend like you can't. Hang on a second. Let me just make a disk, which is a cylinder that's flat. And if you hold Shift and you move something, you get a copy of it. You can just say copy, and so it's actually really easy to make copies of things once you have them. And so that one piece here is very, very easy. Once you figure out what that is, right, you can make that very quickly. There's also modifiers. Oh darn it! I started Rhino. There's also like a symmetry modifier and a mirror modifier. So I can add a mirror, and I can offset that. So that's pretty cool. And so if I ever go back and I modify the original cylinders, right, it's gonna modify that. So there's actually ways of creating parametric. Like you can make a form like this. It's actually parametric. Cancel. Okay. Okay. So let's go through a couple of these just to make sure that we. There's a couple things I want to show you, but so this form, right? You could actually think of it. You got to kind of break these down for yourself. Like this is actually the same thing repeated 4 times, right? So actually, if you make one of these things, it's oriented properly. You just rotate it at 90 degrees like 3 other times and basically put them together. I'm not concerned that they're all like watertight at this point, but that's an idea. This one's pretty. You could actually make this just with the cylinder tool. This one you could start off with a grid, and I'll actually show you how to make a 2D thing into 3D, and then you could distort it using an FFD. Just pull that thing, right? This one here, this one might be a little bit difficult. Let's take a look at something like that. How would I pull a piece out of something and get it? Yeah. What's that, Nick? Oh, and that, yeah, but I'm just wondering about, it's not, well, yeah, what you could do, that's actually a really good idea. Yeah, okay, so let's do this. Let's make a box, just like one box. Yeah, Nick's actually got, I was thinking of some kind of mesh edit thing, but you're probably right. Let's just make a 1x1 box for now. So I've got, yeah, like Nick said, I'm just going to make a couple boxes, right? And I'm kind of doing this in a bad way. I should probably, I'm just doing a shift click here. Let's make a little lattice of boxes. And as I told you guys, I think in second year, right, you always want to look for opportunities where you can just copy something. So once I've got this thing collected, I can just copy it a couple of times. Now, I got all these, and modifiers work, so I can select a lot of objects, and I can apply a modifier to the collection. Woo! So you can do that, but what? Okay, so that's pretty good actually. But what's kind of missing with it? Like if we look at it, like it's just kind of tapered. Like what if we wanted to have more like bend to it? Like what if we wanted it to be a smoother bend? Why won't it be smooth for us right now?
Because they're individual boxes.
They're individual boxes, and what about the individual box itself though? What's that?
Each one's only one solid.
It doesn't have enough facets, right? So how could we like add more facets to something when it's just a bunch of copies of one thing, right? We've already kind of added the like bend, like modifier to it, right? We've already kind of done our damage to it. Like we weren't planning ahead, let's say, right? What we could do is we could go back and if we were smart, we could have gone back and here, let me do this. Let's make a copy. So this is a copy. If I make a copy and I choose to make it an instance of it, okay, it's different. So if I had this box now, if I modify this box, it modifies anything that's an instance of that box. Okay? And so that's a way to introduce parametrics into that. And then if I wanted to add more segments to the object to add more information to it, to my 13 copies of it, I could do that. Okay? It takes a little bit of planning ahead, though. You can't make something an instance once you've already like copied it. What's done is done. Okay?
Can you remove it from an instance?
Yes, you can make it unique. So I can click on this and I can say, okay, now you're your own snowflake. You're totally unique, and now it's just like unique. Okay. What you could do also though, like post facto, is, so let's say you made something and it wasn't parametric, it never had parametrics to begin with, but you want to add more facets to it, you can add a tessellate modifier to it. And what tessellate does is exactly what, well, if you know anything about tessellation, is it adds more facets to it. So you can add more, and there's different algorithms for it. We can talk about this later, but basically you can, if I get my settings right, there's a way to make it so it inserts more like rectangles into it after the fact. Okay, so that's kind of useful as well. But so that's good. So yeah, so we can do that. Nick actually had the right idea. There's a way to make that work. Again, I'm not concerned that they're all the same object. We could always Boolean them like together later in some other program or like what have you. It's schematic. As long as it looks right, I don't really mind. You know what you could do, like in this case, if your professor doesn't like digital stuff, right, is always just model it and then draw on top of it. Just print it out and draw it, right? That's kind of. I don't think that's what this guy did. I think these are really drawings, but you could certainly do that. Okay, let's take another look at some more pages here. So, like again, this one is like a lot of these things bent in different directions, just multiple pieces bent in different directions. Let's talk about a couple things. So, a couple things that I see that I do want you guys to know about are Booleans, and I talked about how much I despise Booleans and how difficult they are to work with. I think that the operation of subtraction and addition is really important in architecture. I just think that handling Booleans computationally is very difficult, because the computer has to think about, where the two objects intersect, and then it has to remove some of the material, and it has to add some material, and it's an easy way for the program to make mistakes and to crash, basically. And that's why I don't like it. But if you're dealing with surface operations, you can kind of achieve the same effect as a Boolean by having one surface subtract from another. In StudioMax, though, as long as you're playing with primitives, Booleans aren't so bad. And in fact, Booleans are parametric. So if I have two objects, I've got these two planets, like let's say crashing into each other, like the Death Star crashing into Endor or something, right? I can take these two objects, and I go into my drop down here, and I make them a compound object. And actually, wait, I take my one, go to compound, I say Boolean, and then I can pick operand B, and then that removes it. And like, oh wow, that's great. Now we have Boolean. Just actually, I made the Death Star. That's ironic. You can also go in, and it's parametric, so I can get the intersection, the subtraction, the other subtraction, the union, which looks the same. It's parametric. Check this out. If I go in and I modify it, this will blow your mind. I can pick the other operand, and I can parametrically Boolean it. Dude. That's the stuff of nightmares right there. That can crash your computer, because for all the reasons I said, and now we're updating it 30 times a second. But how cool is that though? If you were making something and you wanted to see what it would look like if you did something else, all you do is just move that invisible hole through the building. Again, schematic design. How cool is that?
Are you going to modify it?
Yeah, I just modified it, and then I went to operands, and then I just chose which operand I wanted to modify. Let me do something else. That's kind of cool. I bet I could do something cooler. So you could take something like pyramid, and Boolean it out of something. I mean, you got the cooler the form, the more interesting the interaction's going to be. The better the effect is going to be. So let's go to compound, Boolean, pick operand. Yep. So you create that penetration into that space, and there are options so you can see the operands, but I think if you just click near it, it's good enough.
How can you modify the operand? Can you scale the size of the pyramid?
Yeah. Oh, good point. Yes, Ryan is on fire today. Yes, you can totally go through and modify. If I choose the pyramid Boolean, I can rotate that. And guys, next time I'm going to talk about animation. So I'll actually show you how to create a series of these so you can actually do a study of this form moving through the building. It's pretty cool. Experiment with that. I mean, I think that things that work really well as Booleans are slices or wafers or tubes that are penetrating into your building, are creating that kind of negative space, right? Can I show you something else that'll blow your mind? All right. So you can go in, and you guys know a little bit about normals, I think, right? About surface normals. So the normal is the part of the polygon that faces you, which tells you that it's a solid, but it's totally a lie because there's no such thing as a. It doesn't really have like a third dimension. You can in Rhino, I mean, I'm sorry, you can. Hang on a second here. You can turn the object normals. Hang on a second here. You turn the normals inside out basically, and give you. And I might not be doing this right actually, but there's a way to basically turn the form inside out, just by flipping the normals of the object. Or you can delete. You know, if you delete a thing, look at that. You've got access to the inside of that like form now, right? Just by deleting the outside of it. So now you've actually got access to the negative space that's inside of that form. Would it make a great diagram, you know, right?
So could you take a box with your segments in it? Could you make those segments actually become like four slab thicknesses?
Yeah, check this out. So this is the building, right? Like this is the thing that I subtracted, and we throw on a shell modifier, and the whole thing is granted thickness. So the inside thickness and the outside thickness of it. And so if you think about this as a series, I mean, it's not perfect. You have to do a little bit of modification to it. But, I mean, schematically, bam, right? Send it to the printer. There's tons of settings that you can apply to it, and you can add more information to it. So anyway, you know, this kind of inside-outside, positive-negative space thing, it's very easy to, like, experiment with when you're dealing with these modifiers like this. It's really powerful stuff. Okay. Sorry, I kind of blew through that. You guys have any questions about what you just saw there? So Booleans, you know, especially when we're dealing with these schematic kinds of forms, right, I think are totally fair game. I'm trying to think of where. Like this one, for instance, right, this scalped dome, right? The idea is that you have a sphere and you're Booleaning. You take a box, put it up next to it, and you just shave off that edge of that dome, right?
Is there a way to say like an offset curve on surface?
Yeah, there are curves on surface. We'll talk about that next week, actually. Yeah, there are, totally. Okay. I'm trying to think of the other things that. So there's another one where you can subtract it. Booleans are so. I mean, negative space can be so powerful. Notice the dotted line of the form there. So it's this idea. It's like the thing started as a cube, and then you took a bunch of spheres and you eroded the like corners of it. Okay. You can't even model that kind of thing. You just have to sculpt it. Like you have to take these forms and let them play with each other. Like when I say model, like I mean like in Rhino, again, plot all the individual curves that it takes. You just can't do that. And just these powerful ideas about these things kind of like touching each other, like two bent objects, one shorter than the other, playing with the tension between those two things. Like these simple kind of dumb ideas, you know, can become the generator for a really rich like form, right? For a really rich formal experience. They don't have to be, you know, blobby. They can just be, you know, interesting. Okay, so there's another one too. So making it. Okay, so it actually gets me to the next thing and the last kind of formal thing I want to talk about today, which is 2D curves. Because they've always been our bread and butter, right? We're going to make something in 2D, then we're going to extrude it. Makes sense. So to get into splines, you just go to Create tab, and you're going to go over to the Spline Shape tab. And there's a whole host of pre-built forms, just like you get in AutoCAD, like rectangles and ellipses and like whatever. But there's some other kind of fun things built in there. But we can go ahead and just make lines, okay? And to make a line, you just basically like click a point, and you can hold Shift, you know, just like you do in AutoCAD. And you can do orthogonal, you know, lines. And then if you turn on if you turn on vertex snaps, it makes it easier to kind of finish your snap. Let's turn that off here. Vertex. So again, we can do like a closed crazy form. And I think it is actually a command to close it. Huh. It's weird. Okay. Hang on, let me do this one more time.
So when you click and drag, it works like Illustrator?
Yeah, and that's the other point. Yeah, again, so if you click and drag, if you have the drag type set to smooth. Hang on a second here. Keep doing this different ways. Okay. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, if you change the drag type to smooth or to like Bezier, you can get like your Illustrator style like Bezier curves. And if you get close to the edge and you click, it'll say close spline. You say yes, and you get your form. Okay, I'll go back through this again. So now you've got your spline. If it's closed, well, and even if it's not really, you can add an extrude modifier. And there you go. Like you get a parametric extrusion. Okay, so all that stuff that we're used to. So if I go through and just to finish with a few things here. So if I have a form and I have another, so I can take two shapes, and these are separate shapes. Like this is one shape, and this is one shape. I can go in, modify it. I can say, I can go to like attach, that attaches that to the, so now I have a polyline, it has two curves. If I extrude that, that gives me a shape. So very, very much similar to like Rhino, right? If you extrude something and it has a shape in it, you get a hole in it. But the tools are a little bit tricky. And this is something that you might need to practice a bit because it's very different from the nice kind of CAD tools that you have been using. So let's go, and it's all handled through modify, really. So you know how you did edit mesh? When you modify a line, you basically get an edit line, and so you can go in and you can go to the vertex level and you can move the vertices around. You can go to segments and you can move the segments around. And you can move entire splines, which is really useful if you have one nested inside of the other, right? And it's fully parametric, I should say, so that if I, extruded this thing, I can go back to the line that generated the extrusion, and if I modify that point, it modifies the extruded like geometry. Okay, it's parametric. Okay, so that's useful. I can go into a line here, and I can change the vertex type to a Bezier. Hang on a second here. Or Bezier corner. I mean, basically, I can retroactively reshape it. For some reason, it's not coming up the way I want to. Maybe because I extruded it. I don't know. Lock handles. No. Hang on a second. It's not showing up. Well, I might need to amend this. But anyway, there's a way to go back and change the type of the handle. So you can make it a curved one if it started off flat. Yeah, it's not showing up. Okay. I'll have to amend this. But anyway, so you can, there's lots of tools for editing splines. You can also do Boolean. So if I have a circle, and again, I need to attach it to make it part of that, I can take that spline and I can move it into proximity with this, and then I can do things like I can do like a Boolean between the two. It's not working. Okay. Huh. Hang on. Oh, I see. You have to click one on the other. Okay, so then that gives me points. I can go through the segments and I can delete them. Oof. Hang on a second. Yeah, the Boolean works. Okay, I have to take this and I select one. and then I click on Boolean, and then I Boolean the other one out. So it's kind of a multi-step. But anyway, all the stuff that you know how to do, you can do, and then you could go into Spline, and you can outline it, and that actually gives you the ability to offset that curve, and then you can extrude it. So all the stuff you know how to do is there. It's just a little bit different, a little bit wonkier. Okay. You can even play with the number of facets that are in the spline itself if you want to go back and you want to adjust the sort of, you know, the kind of curvature that you have. You have parametric control over that as well. Somewhere. Interpolation, yeah. So I can go through and I can make it less and less or more and more detailed if I want to. So I can make it so it's actually parametric. So spend a little. I'll put up a PDF that has some of these commands already in it, and it has some sequences. So don't worry if you didn't follow all that. I just want to run through it really quickly. So spline editing is fully available. You have that capability in this software. You know, another thing too is, guys, when you extrude stuff, you can add a number of segments inside of it. Right? So, and then you can go through, add an edit mesh. So again, that becomes more information for you to kind of play with, right? I wonder what would happen if I extruded them. Whoa. That might be where local. Okay, so Nick, this is where the difference between local and group gets really important. If I don't have group, they're not. If I put them in local, they're all extruding out on their own normal. If I extrude them as a group, they're all kind of tracking, well, basically in the wrong direction. Kind of cool though. There, now add a shell to that, right? And then we're in business. So anyway. Just so many things that are possible that you can experiment with when you get to these kind of methods. Okay, so anyway, extrude is nice because you can parametrically add more information to the extrusion profile, and then you can get something. God, it's like a transformer or something. Cool. Okay. So that's just kind of simple. So we did Booleans, we did line editing. The last piece that I want to talk about is just cameras and rendering, and I'm going to do this really simply, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff you can do, but I want to give you guys something that looks kind of like this, okay? Because I don't know, I like the way it looks, and it might be useful for us. So I'm going to go back. If you go to objects, we did standard primitives, we did compound objects. Check out extended primitives. These are some primitives that you have access to that are really unusual. Like, for instance, the ring wave, which is like a shock wave. It's like a Star Trek like shock wave that you can play with parametrically. The torus knot, which is my personal favorite. Check this out. Very cool. And you can play with the different like degrees of like torus. Pretty cool. So anyway, so play with some of those. I'm gonna use this as my kind of base object. And you notice that the objects they just have these wacky colors. Like everyone's has different colors. You can change that just by clicking on the little swatch here and just changing that swatch. Now, that is just the system color. Like that actually, right now, is not a material. Like if you render it, it doesn't mean it has a material. It's just so that each object looks a little bit different from the others, so you don't get confused by what you made. To go into the materials, you want to go into the material editor. It's this little thing here. And I'm not going to explain all this right now. I'll do that later. But what we're going to do is an ink and paint material. So you can double click on that, and then you get all these little things. And this is kind of like Grasshopper. There's all these little like threads you can connect. You don't really need all that stuff. What we've got though is this ink and paint material. You can, if you double click on width, you get the paint control. So you have the lighted side, and that's the color. So if I click on that swatch, that's the color I want. So if I want this to be black and white, I might decrease the saturation and increase it so I get gray. And so now I have a gray color. Okay. And then, let me see here. And then the ink controls, this actually gives me the width of the object, like with the outline that I'm going to give it. This basically, it's called ink and paint because it makes it look like a drawing. Anyway, let's go ahead and we have the thing selected. Let's apply it to the material, to the selection. Now it turns gray. And let's just click the teapot to render it. And so that just gives me my basic kind of thing. I'll take a step back and show you again. So I went to Material Editor, double-click Ink and Paint to make an Ink and Paint material. I double-click the width map thing, and I go into Paint Controls, change the color of that material. You can experiment with the ink settings here. You could say that the ink has variable width. You could say that it has consistent width. You can play with what that width is. I can say the width is a minimum of 1 or 2. That's going to make it thicker or thinner. That automatically updates to the material, okay? And then you just have to make sure to apply the material. So that little icon up there, terrible interface, right? Like, how would you know? So you click that, and that applies it. When this thing turns gray, you know you've done it. The teapot is your renderer. By default, it renders whatever view you've got. And it's going to go through the whole render kind of process. If I change my view, it's going to give me...
Can you save views?
Yes, I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, you can make cameras. Okay. Yeah. So that's the kind of ink and paint. But we have no shading, and we don't have a consistent camera. Okay, so we need to get a camera in there. Cameras are objects too. So you go to Create, and you have the little camera icon. I love these cameras so much more than the Rhino cameras, guys. Like, the Rhino ones suck. They're hard to use. Go to Target. You click where you want your camera to start, and you click it, and you let go where you want it to end. So you just click on a target camera, and then if you go to your 4 views, just like in Rhino, I can change to the camera view. So camera 1. That's what my camera sees. If I move my viewport, it moves my camera. That's like Rhino. I could also do an orthographic camera, and then I can make sure that it's more like axonometric. I believe there actually is some kind of setting. Yeah, if you click on this little widget here, you can get that view. You can make a camera from any view. So if I like this orthographic view that's axonometric, I can go into views, and forgive me, there's a way to do it. And I can basically say create camera from view. Oh shoot, it still doesn't like that though. Ooh. Doesn't want to let me do that. Okay. Well, I might need to do some homework on that one. But anyway, you can get a camera that's reasonably close to that position, and then it's saved. Like if you go back to that camera, you always have it. We can render it. So let's see what we got. Okay. The rendering settings are right next to the teapot here under render setup. This is where you control how large the rendering is. It has all these predefined settings, 800 by 600. You can, if you click the image aspect, which is usually what the monitor size is, you can go at any size, and it'll automatically calculate what the proper ratio is for that image. You don't need to mess with most of this. Hang on a second. Okay. The other one that's important is if you go to rendering, you want to change the environment. Background color, we want to do white. That's gonna take care of that, basically. So now we don't have that black background anymore. Now let's see what we can do about maybe a shadow and some light. So I'm going to drop and this is a secret, right? Not a secret, but whatever, all you need to worry about is what the camera sees. And you can fake a lot of stuff, right? So I don't need an infinite plane or anything like that. All I need is a plane that's big enough that's going to accommodate my shape. And if it's a regular plane, actually let's go in to the material editor. Let's make another ink and paint material. God, this is there. I can shrink this here. Let's make this white. And that's going to catch, almost white. And that's going to catch shadow. We need something that's going to catch shadow. And we'll apply it to that base plane. Let's see what we got. We don't have lights, so I don't expect that we're going to get anything. Okay. So now we've got that. And then the last step is to add some kind of a light. We want a standard light. I might just give you this setup, actually, because I really don't think you need to worry about all this stuff. It's good if you want to experiment with it, but it's not critical. And if you go in, I think you guys have seen this, but if you change the view type to realistic, it should actually show you the shadow in the viewport in real time, which is super sick if you've got your, because I can move my light around. Is it not? It's not. It should update. Well, anyway. Okay. It's supposed to, I think if I reset, it'll redraw. Okay, and let's see if we get shadows now. Okay, so we have to adjust some of the parameters of that spotlight. Let's go spotlight. We don't want to see the spot. That's actually the problem, and we actually want to do a shadow map. Yeah, I'll just give this stuff to you. This is too much. Okay, overshoot. We want soft shadows. There we go. Okay, we're getting close. Okay, so anyway, that's what's nice about Studio Max is that it has the tools. They're very sort of interactive. It has a stronger renderer built into it than Rhino does. It's easier if you know what you're doing. It's easier to experiment with the different settings of it. Obviously, this is way too much for us to have to deal with right now, but this is kind of a place where we can kind of show off what Studio Max does. Okay, so anyway, I will give you guys a studio basically with some settings. I got the wrong view. And you guys can put your objects into it. Okay, let's make these things like 100 units by 100 units, so that they're kind of consistent. And I'll post that online. Okay, so they have to fit in a box that's 100 by 100. Okay. Dakota's already got some crazy sketchy. What is that, man? Is that one of the viewports?
Yeah, the viewports have a fun little thing called Siteless.
Oh my god. Oh, maybe we can just screen cap that. Oh, fancy. Funky fancy. Why do you need that? It's fun. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Wow. That's new. I hadn't seen it before. Yeah, I guess, man. Tell Michael. Okay, so maybe we can play with that. Gosh, that's kind of there you go. See, you notice though how it doesn't quite give you the edge of the object. I wonder about that. Huh. Yeah. Cool. Well, anyway, maybe we can just do that. Let's do a screen cap. We'll get it set up, and we'll just do these things. Obviously, you don't want the gizmo in there. But if you hide the lights and cameras, and you just deselect, let's go to edit, select none. Yeah, get a big enough window, screen cap that, call it a day. Yeah, I like that. Let's just do that.
How did you turn the shadows on again then?
The shadows actually come from the light that I made, and if you're using the stylized version, I think that you get it. You can also make sure that you have the shadows toggled when you go under lighting and shadows. Funky.
Is there a real simple way to set up a location for the sun? Say if you're wanting.
There is a sun system. If you go into photometric lights, there is a photometric. There should be a photometric sun somewhere in there. Skylight, and that'll actually drop a sun in there. Yeah, if you want to do that. I'm not that concerned about these guys. You're gonna turn these into me. I just want to see what you've done, right? So don't sweat this too much. As long as I can tell what you've done, that's all that matters to me. And as long as you guys like have a good time. Just for this assignment, I just want you guys to experiment pretty freely. I would love to see, though, guys, if you're doing studio stuff and you want to use it, you have questions about doing something, I would love to talk to you about it. That's why I designed this semester kind of around the different sequences in Studio, right? Except for the last part of class, which is hopefully has nothing to do with what you're doing in Studio. Like the generative design is way out there. But this is schematic. The next phase is going to be something that's more geared towards construction documentation and design development style stuff. If you're doing like details, the Rhino stuff is going to be really useful for you if you want to make a really nice looking detail drawing, okay? But for now, this is like schematic stuff. I'm here to support you. You guys have any questions about what we've done today? Like I apologize for throwing so much at you. I just feel like it's the way to do it right now. Do you guys, anything you guys want me to go back over a little bit more? You want to know how to do?
As far as Studio goes, making that topo with maybe casting shadows for initial site analysis?
Yeah.
Is that
You can do a sun system with topo. Yeah. Yeah, guys, Max has a really nice topo tool. I actually like it a lot better than making topo in Rhino. If you want me to talk about it, let me know. I can tell you guys. If you have, especially if you have it in AutoCAD, it's beautiful. Works really well. But you know, so brand new tool for you guys to play with, and hopefully some inspiration, you know, kind of happen. I'm really interested in. I'm interested in you guys experimenting. I know we kind of like wag our finger at this kind of formal stuff, but let's face it. Like this is the aesthetic that we're like in right now. Like this is what's possible with these tools. I would rather us get really good at it than tell us that we can't ever use it, and it should be off limits, right? I want you guys to be capable of making anything that you want with a high degree of quality and precision. You can be clear about what you're trying to do. You know, you guys are responsible, so let's have at it. I will post up the assignment and the syllabus and the schedule this evening. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thanks so much for your attention. I hope they fix this heat in here. That'll be it. And the videos will take a little bit to encode. I'll get them up tonight.